healthcare is going to start getting very expensive for everyone, beyond what it costs now. But for some people, it's going to be so cost prohibitive that they're going to actually wind up losing their health insurance. So we wanted to have a conversation today with both someone from the Assembly and the State Senate talking about it from a Wisconsin perspective, and two folks that are going to be directly affected by it in different ways from the increases. So what we're facing from the big ugly law that the Republicans passed are some pretty big attacks on healthcare. We saw that what they did is going to increase everybody's rates, because as fewer people have health insurance, it's not like that means they're not getting sick. They're still going to get care. It has to be paid for, and that's going to get passed on to all of us. I was told by a group in Madison Friday night that their group health insurance just got increased 41% for next year. And that's that they started getting that, and everyone's going to start getting those rate increases this month. But that's a part of everyone getting it. We know in the big ugly law that many people are going to lose access to Medicaid. We know that many people are going to lose their tax credits through the Affordable Care Act, and that's, again, this timeline right now, probably between now and October 17th in Wisconsin, that'll get released. We also know that what they did, because they did it so poorly, triggered a trillion with a T, like in Trump, $1 trillion cut to Medicare. And that affects everybody, not just people on Medicaid or in the ACA. So there's a lot of big cuts and attacks that are going to raise costs for people on healthcare. And we wanted to give a perspective from the state of Wisconsin and directly from people who are going to be impacted. The Kaiser Foundation has told us that on the Affordable Care Act, one of the things they're anticipating, depending on your age and the plan, a couple 60 years old making $85,000 in my district could see somewhere between a $16,000 and $17,000 increase next year in their premiums. Yesterday, I had the pleasure of driving through western Wisconsin, popped into Richland Center and Viroqua, La Crosse, and Eau Claire. Apparently, they have a member of Congress, but he doesn't show up too often, so I filled in for him. Glad you're welcome, Derek. There, that increase for that same sort of couple was $21,712. So those are the increases across the state. On average, it's about 17,000, 18,000 across the state for people in that demographic. So with that, we've got a couple folks who are going to share their stories with us, as well as a couple of the state representatives and state senators. We've got Macy Bueller, who is the owner of Yahara River Learning Center, and we have Kyle LaFond, who's the founder, president, and CEO of American Provenance. And they're both going to share their stories, as well as Senator Jeff Smith and Assemblyman Ryan Spouty. So first, let's start with Macy Bueller. If Macy could join, she will tell her story about the insurance she's on and the concerns they have.
Hello, I'm a small business owner. I'm lucky that my husband has insurance through his business. We are worried, of course, about the rate increases, 20% or more. Also worried as my husband reaches an age where he'd like to retire, and he works in a very physical job. And then it'll be on me solely, as well as my employees right now, and I'm very concerned for them. I run a business that's a child care center, and I'm very concerned about keeping my staff healthy so that other people can work. And I've been talking to other insurance companies if the ACA is not affordable to them anymore, what we can do, what I can do. I'm not an HR person. I don't specialize in benefits. That's not my thing. I am doing the best I can. But when people don't see that this is going to affect our workforce, it frustrates me. It will absolutely affect our workforce. It will absolutely affect families who are middle class and lower. It will affect our farmers. I have families who work in all areas. It will affect them. And childcare is already costly. I'm already thinking I might have to do a rate increase again in January. I have to keep my staff healthy and in the building so that people can work. So this is a really big mountain that I feel we need to stand on and stay on.
Thank you, Macy. And as Macy said, she's anticipating at least a 20% increase from what she's being told. She's exploring other options, but 20% increase, we're already paying too much for housing. We know because of Trump's tariff taxes, we're paying too much right now. for groceries. We're starting to see that with durable goods, especially with the holiday season. We're seeing energy costs go up because of the big ugly law and the effects it did on getting rid of some of the assistance for people with wind and solar and the utility companies affected. And now people are going to see these healthcare increases. 20%, or like that group plan just got 41% increase. So next, one of the leaders on healthcare in the state Senate is someone who I used to serve with. And last night I got to see in Eau Claire, so he and I both are putting on lots of miles on our cars in the last 24 hours, Senator Jeff Smith.
Thank you, Mark. You know, this is great to hear a story right from a small business owner. I myself, my previous life was a small business owner, and providing healthcare for my employees was always a challenge. But boy, I am glad at this point in my life I'm not dealing with that for other people, because it is a huge responsibility you feel to be sure you're responsible for someone else to be able to have access to health care. But no different than being a legislator in that sense. We are responsible in so many ways to be sure that access is available to everyone. Where I come from, we just had hospital closures. I don't know if you're sick of hearing about that over the past year and a half, but it was a reality that hit home. And now when we have a do-nothing state legislature here who refused to act when that happened, and now refuse to meet and act when we're facing a devastating circumstances from what's happening in DC, when we could. There are things we could do. We have, and Congressman Pocan talked about the average increase is going to be, but I heard from OCI, I actually have a input, or have someone in OCI that I can talk to, that it's going to, some people it's going to cost $24,000 increase in 1 year. 24,000. And the age bracket that is going to be hurt the most is age 58 to 64. Just before the insurance companies hand them off to Medicare, it is that age group that is going to be hit the worst. And I understand people don't think it's going to affect them because maybe they're not on Medicaid. You know, maybe they don't even use the ACA. But as you've heard already, and you're going to hear more about how it affects everybody, including our grocery prices, including everything else that goes along with it. Because when our individual workers are struggling, when each business's costs go up, their prices have to go up to reflect that. So we're talking about things that we could be doing. I mean, we here in this state, we have not even been able to, or willing to, from the majority party, to extend postpartum benefits to new mothers and new families. Where are we as a society that we are not willing to be sure that people get the access that they need? Because this is not a privilege. This is a right that we as humans and as a society are responsible for. So we have made offers of different ideas from the Democrats in the state legislature on things we can do. We need reform. We need hospital reform. We need Medicaid reform, right? We should have taken that money for the last dozen years that we did not take. That would have made a difference by now for us. There are just so many things we could have done at this point, and we still can do. We need to raise our voices most of all. Raise our voices and make sure that when we do get to the floor, which I know they don't even want to hear us or talk to us on the floor or even in committee, we need to be raising our voices. That's all we have right now is our voices. And I appreciate Congressman Pocan here raising his voice, and especially in my 3rd congressional district where I don't hear from my congressman. But we all have to do that. And I appreciate the opportunity to do that here today. And then now I'm going to introduce Kyle LaFond.
Thanks, Jeff. As mentioned, my name is Kyle LaFond. I own a niche manufacturing business here just southwest of Madison. And thanks to Mark for having me here today. Nice to see you again. I'm one of more than 22 million Americans that rely on the ACA for my health care. 22 million. When I think about my own personal costs, they're more than going to double next year. When I survey my team, I've got a small team of employees. There's only 8 of us. Between everyone, we're looking at a low end, $2,000 up to about $12,000. For a growing family, those price hikes are almost insurmountable. It's unconscionable that congressional Republicans won't even meet to discuss what's going to happen here in the next few days. I'm very proud of the fact that I own a business. I've always tried to do the best for my employees. The ACA really leveled the playing field in terms of being able to provide coverage where I couldn't. I have searched for years to find plans and programs that will work for all of my employees. With the ACA subsidies expiring, I might lose some good people. So I'm talking about the future of my business. The trickle-down effects from these increased healthcare costs are going to lead to fundamental changes for most small businesses across the state of Wisconsin. So again, thanks for having me here today. Congressional Republicans need to come back, need to start talking about these things, because it's going to be just hugely detrimental to folks like me who own and operate businesses, and those of us that rely on the ACA for our healthcare. So thanks, Aaron.
Representative Ryan Spouty from Green Bay. What I love is there's so many freshmen in the assembly, and they're already taking on leadership roles. So thank you for being here, Ryan.
I'm going to seize the mic from you.
There you go.
Thank you, Congressman. Thank you, Kyle. It's great to be here. My name is Ryan Spouty. I'm the state representative for the West Side Green Bay and Ashwaubenon. I'm proud to stand with this group of Democratic lawmakers here today who are fighting to protect your health care. Roughly 235,000 Wisconsinites depend on tax credits under the Affordable Care Act to help pay their premiums. We've got roughly 250,000 people right here in Wisconsin who need Congress to do the right thing. And what happens when those tax credits expire? Well, we were just hearing 20%, 40% increases, 100% increases, doubling premiums. That's insane. Families are going to struggle with those increases. Families are going to struggle, or they're going to go into debt, or they're going to lose their health care altogether because they can't afford the insurance. And that is an unacceptable outcome. In my district, Westside Green Bay, we're fortunate to have a hospital, St. Mary's, that provides truly amazing care. Last year, they had 22,141 emergency room visits. And from among those visits, they had nearly $3 million in uncompensated care. Those numbers, they're only going to go up if we let those ACA tax credits expire. We're going to have more folks without health insurance coming to the ER to get care that they could have received in a primary care physician's office. And that rise in uncompensated costs, that's going to impact everybody. We are going to bear that burden. We're going to bear that burden as hospitals are forced to cut services or potentially even staff. Democrats here today are fighting like hell to stop all of that. We're not really pushing anything new here, really truly. For the 235,000 Wisconsinites, the ACA tax credits, the status quo, that's working for them. The marketplace is stable here in Wisconsin. It's actually growing. Let's keep building on what we've got, not destroy it. And I'll just add, according to a recent national survey, 78% of all Americans support extending the ACA tax credits. That includes a majority of folks across all political parties, even Republicans. 59% of Republicans support extending the ACA tax credits. It is really remarkable. The Republican lawmakers in DC are on the wrong side of their own voters with this issue. Pretty incredible, in my opinion. To wrap up, like I said, we are fighting for your health care. Your health care. You will be impacted. I bet you, I promise, you know somebody, whether it's a family member or a friend or a neighbor, that sweet little old lady across the street. You know who I'm talking about there. You know somebody who's going to be impacted if we let these ACA tax credits expire. We cannot do this to our family, to our friends, to our neighbors. They're going to be in a world of hurt. Let's act now to stop the pain. And with that, I'm going to turn things back over to Congressman Pocan.
Thank you. And, I shouldn't even be here. I should be in Washington this week. We were scheduled. This is technically our third week of paid vacation. So I spent the day yesterday in the 3rd District. Today I'm doing this. So we're going to make sure that we're making people understand what the shutdown's about. And just so you know, in Wisconsin, we're not going to feel the shutdown as quickly as other places. I had 85 calls all last week on the shutdown. But I've had, since the beginning of the year to last Tuesday, 14,435 calls about healthcare. So this is something people really care about. 2 myths, just real quickly, I want to dispel because I think it's important. Republicans in Wisconsin are putting out some really disingenuous stuff. One, they're saying that we're fighting for, let me get the right words, JD Vance had it. I don't quote JD Vance that often. Here we go. Democrats are threatening to shut down the entire government because they want to give hundreds of billions of dollars of health benefits to illegal aliens. PolitiFact gave that an outright false. The reason is because it's, okay, this room, manure. Manure is what it is. It's a pretty room. I got to talk pretty. So here's the reality. I serve on appropriations. This is stuff I know. There is not, by federal law, not one dime can go directly to someone who's an undocumented person. I'm going to use that terminology from Medicare, Medicaid, or the Affordable Care Act. So nothing. So it's not true. There is one little provision that came to us from President, what was his name? Reagan. Ronald Reagan. Yes, that progressive liberal Democrat who about 1% of the Medicaid dollars go to help compensate people who go to emergency room who don't have insurance. That could maybe possibly be someone who's undocumented. But if that money doesn't go to that person, it goes to the hospital. If they don't have that money, all of our rates go up. That's why Ronald Reagan and Congress at that time put that in place. So to say that it's hundreds of billions, clearly it's not. The other thing that we hear in Wisconsin, and this is especially true for Jeff and Christian and Jody, where they just lost 2 hospitals in their area in Eau Claire, they're saying that you're risking the $50 billion that was put in to help rural hospitals in the big ugly law. Here's the reality on that. The big ugly law cost rural hospitals $443 billion due to more people that are going to be on compensated care that have to come in. That covers about 1 out of every $9 they're going to lose. So to say you gave someone a gaping wound, but now we're taking away the Band-Aid to cover it, clearly doesn't make any sense. So, Republicans need to just, 1, quit lying, 2, step up. Let's get back to reopening the government by making sure we're protecting people on health care. You're hearing the numbers from Wisconsin across everyone's districts. We need to take care of this. And with that, we're glad to open it up and take any questions you might have.
Do you see any signs that any of your Republican colleagues in the House may be pushing their own leadership to get back and be willing to negotiate?
I mean, not really. I think they're on their 3rd week of pina coladas, right? They're not showing up. We went last week to Washington. No matter what, they didn't come. This week, I mean, if they're not coming, it didn't totally make sense for us to be here. So instead, I'm trying to get around and talk about what's going on. But I don't see any Republicans publicly taking their leadership on or really taking Donald Trump on this. So that's a problem. And they all voted in Wisconsin. Every member of the Republican delegation voted for the big ugly law. They put these policies into effect. It's time that they fix them.
One thing we have heard from conservatives about these tax credits is they were enacted in 2021 as part of the Inflation Reduction Act, and the plan then was for this to be temporary as part of the response to the COVID pandemic. So what would your message be to anyone who sees this and says these credits were meant to be temporary, they were never meant to be extended?
Sure. First of all, that's not true. About 20% true, 80% not. Okay, so just like we do with many laws at the state and federal level, when you do something as big as the Affordable Care Act, you're going to find that some people didn't get covered with health care, whether it be income or whatever their situation might be. Part of what happened during COVID is we recognized that to make sure more people had health care coverage. But the intention never was to take away health coverage from people. It was to adjust the law to make sure that you caught the people that you wanted to catch through the Affordable Care Act, because tens of millions of people clearly were uninsured. So it doesn't really, yes, it came through during that time period, but it was about adjusting a law to make sure that we were getting as many people the coverage they need. And to not do that is bluntly cruel. I mean, you're just taking away health insurance from people who otherwise have it.
Why was there an expiration date on it then?
Probably because that's the negotiated deal we had to do to get it passed, like we do in many things. But you always are testing stuff, and we're always tweaking things. I wish in Medicare we could add dental, vision, and hearing coverage, right? That's healthcare. Something that I think we can do someday, hopefully in the near future. But we're still tweaking something like that that's been around for as long as it has. I think that's just a natural progression.
What's your message to people who are furloughed right now or working without pay right now? You're fighting for this, and Republicans are saying that this is, quote, like a Democrat-led shutdown type of thing. What are your message to people who are kind of furloughed right now?
Yeah, the good news is they get it. They're telling us keep the faith, keep solid, because they know it's people who are losing their health care. Look, Project 2025, 800 plus pages. If you want to know what the Trump administration is going to do, you just go back to that. And it's about firing a whole bunch of federal employees. Donald Trump's trying to use this as a reason to set up the firing, but he's been doing it already. My little brother from Big Brothers Big Sisters, we were matched when he's 8. Now he's in his 40s, lives out in DC. Lost his job at USAID. He was helping electrify medical clinics in Africa. But that's just what Donald Trump's been doing. So they get that you can't trust them on anything. And don't forget, we had deals in December, a bipartisan CR we all agreed to, that one tweet from Elon Musk and the bipartisan agreement fell apart. And then in March, there was one that was a little more controversial. A few senators voted for it. And immediately they went back on their word on funding that we in a bipartisan way agreed to do. Then Donald Trump did rescissions, which are against the law, and started taking away funding that we did. Article 1 of the Constitution gives the power of the purse to Congress, and he took it away. So they get all of that. They know where the attack is coming from. It's Russ Vought over at the OMB, and it's Stephen Miller in the White House. Those are the folks that are pulling most of the strings these days. But I was on TV the other night with someone, and I'm really impressed. They're like, no, this is the right thing to do. We can't let them do this. And I think it'd be hard for me if I was trying to think about how feeding a family and you're not about to not get a check. But for them to do that, they're the real heroes in this. Other questions? If not, please take a chance to talk to a couple of our folks who are going to feel this. And you're going to hear a lot. I believe October 17th is the date that the state should have the new numbers on the ACA. But I think you're also going to see private firms continuing this month to release rates. So as you talk to folks, you're going to find more people with this. But like I said, one group alone in Madison, Friday night told me they just got their rate increase. It's 41%. I think you're going to have a lot of these stories coming out in the next few weeks. So thanks for being here. We appreciate it. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Good job.